The phone rang at 11:47 p.m. My mother's voice came through tight and rehearsed. Your brother needs the deposit for his wedding venue. 30,000. We told the coordinator you'd wire it by morning. Not a question. Not a request. A conclusion they'd already reached without me. I sat up in bed, the glow of my phone illuminating my husband's sleeping face beside me. And in that moment, staring at the ceiling of our bedroom in Manila, I understood that I'd been cast in a role I never auditioned for, and tonight was the night I walked off the stage. My name is Elena. I'm 34 years old, and I'm the eldest daughter in a Filipino family that built itself on the myth of collective sacrifice. For most of my life, that sacrifice has had my name on it. To outsiders, we're the model immigrant family. My parents moved to Canada when I was 12, worked 3 jobs between them, sent money back to relatives in Cebu. They raised 2 children who both finished university. We attend Mass together. We celebrate every holiday with a house full of relatives and enough food to feed the entire neighborhood. But family isn't defined by how tightly you're packed together at a table. It's defined by who's allowed to breathe. In our house, my younger brother Marco breathed deeply. His dreams mattered. His career changes were supported. When he wanted to switch from engineering to graphic design, it was called finding his passion. When he moved back home at 28, it was called regrouping. I learned early that being the responsible one earned quiet praise. Being dependable meant being invisible. My mother would touch my shoulder after I'd handled something difficult and say, "Alam mo na, anak, you already know." Knowing became my inheritance. By my late 20s, knowing meant providing. Not officially, just quietly. Covering shortfalls when my parents' retirement savings ran thin. Helping with Marco's rent when his freelance work dried up. Funding repairs on the house I no longer lived in. Every time, it was framed as temporary. Every time, it became permanent. I never told my family the full scope of my career. After university, I moved to Singapore, then Manila, building a career in corporate finance that my parents reduced to Elena works with computers. I didn't correct them. I wore simple clothes when I visited. I talked about work in vague terms. Letting them underestimate me felt kinder than watching them recalculate what I owed. My parents loved milestones. Birthdays became production numbers. Christmas meant renting a function hall. Marco's engagement party had a live band. They loved the appearance of abundance, the feeling that we'd made it, that Canada had been worth the sacrifice. And somehow, I was always the one ensuring that appearance held. The night of that phone call, I wasn't surprised. I'd felt it building for weeks. Marco's engagement had been announced with the certainty of someone who'd never had to save for anything. My mother started sentences with "once Elena transfers," and ended them with decisions I wasn't part of making. But $30,000. By morning, I looked at my phone, at my mother's name still glowing on the screen. I thought about my younger self, the one who'd worked 2 jobs through university while sending money home. The one who'd delayed her own wedding because my parents needed help with Marco's tuition. The one who'd learned that love in our family was measured in wire transfers and silence. My husband stirred beside me. "Who was that?" "My mother," I said. "They need money for Marco's wedding." He didn't ask how much. He already knew it would be more than I should give. "What did you tell her?" I stared at the dark ceiling. "I told her I'd call back in the morning." But I already knew what morning would bring. Not anger, not confrontation, just a quiet, irreversible shift, like tectonic plates finally giving way after decades of pressure. I couldn't sleep after that call. I sat in our study, the city lights of Makati flickering through the window, and opened the spreadsheet I'd been maintaining for 6 years. I'd never called it what it was. I'd labeled it family support, like it was charity, like it was voluntary. Line by line, the truth assembled itself. Monthly transfers to my parents' account. Emergency loans to Marco that were never mentioned again. The down payment on his car. His business venture that collapsed after 8 months. The medical bills, the property taxes, the 1,000 small crises that somehow always required my immediate intervention. I scrolled to the bottom. The number there felt obscene. Not because of its size, but because of its invisibility. No one had ever acknowledged it. No one had ever said thank you in a way that meant they understood the weight. My husband appeared in the doorway holding 2 cups of tea. He set one beside my keyboard without speaking. He'd learned years ago that these moments required presence, not solutions. 30,000, I said aloud. For a venue deposit. They didn't ask if I had it. They didn't ask if it was a good time. They just assumed. He sat down across from me. Because you've never said no. The words landed without judgment, just observation. He was right. In 12 years of being the family's financial foundation, I'd never once said the word that would make everything stop. Marco doesn't even know what I do, I continued. He thinks I'm comfortable. He doesn't know I'm the reason he gets to be comfortable. Do you want to tell him? I shook my head. I want to stop being the reason. Saying it out loud felt like standing at the edge of something irreversible. Not a cliff, a threshold. Once I stepped through, there would be no pretending I hadn't seen what I'd seen. My husband reached across the table. Whatever you decide, I'm here. I looked at the spreadsheet one more time. Then I closed it. Not because I was backing down. Because I didn't need to study it anymore. The pattern was clear. The evidence was complete. I picked up my phone and typed a message to my mother. Not long. Not emotional. Just 8 words that would change everything. I won't be sending the deposit. Love, Elena. I didn't press send. Not yet. I needed to understand what I was really doing. This wasn't about money. It was about permission. For years, I'd given my family permission to organize their lives around my silence. To budget based on my predictability. To dream without limits because I would handle the mathematics of reality. Withdrawing that permission would collapse more than plans. It would collapse their understanding of who I was. I set the phone down and walked to the window. Manila never slept. Below, the city hummed with motion, people building lives I would never know, carrying burdens I would never see. Somewhere in Canada, my family was sleeping, confident that morning would bring what it always brought, my compliance. The old Elena would have wired the money by now, would have swallowed her frustration, would have told herself that this was what good daughters did, that family meant sacrifice, that my success was only meaningful if it served them. But the woman standing at this window, looking at her reflection in the glass, was tired of serving a myth. I picked up the phone again. This time, I pressed send. The response came faster than I expected. Not from my mother. From Marco. A string of messages that arrived one after another, each more bewildered than the last. Mom said you're not helping with the venue. Is everything okay? Elena, this is my wedding. You can't just bail. I stared at the screen, at the word bail, as if I were abandoning a commitment I'd made rather than declining one date assigned to me. Then my mother called. I let it ring twice before answering. Hello, Mama. Her voice was controlled, the way it got when she was managing something she found unreasonable. Elena, I don't understand. Your brother's wedding is in 4 months. The venue needs the deposit this week or we lose the date. I understand, I said. Then why? Because it's not my wedding. Silence opened up between us, vast and unfamiliar. He's your brother, she said finally. I know. We're family. I know that too. Her breath changed, sharpening. You have the money, Elena. We know you do. There it was. The certainty that had always lived beneath the requests. They weren't asking. They were collecting what they believed I owed. How much I have isn't the question, I said, keeping my voice level. The question is why you didn't ask me before promising Marco something on my behalf. We didn't think we had to ask, she said, and for the first time, I heard something like confusion. You always help. I do, I agreed. And that's the problem. The problem. Her voice rose slightly. Your family needing you is a problem. No, Mama. Your family assuming I have no choice is the problem. She inhaled sharply. After everything we've done for you. I know what you've done, I interrupted gently. You moved countries for us. You worked impossible hours. You gave up so much. I know. But that doesn't mean I owe Marco a wedding I can't afford to give. Can't afford. She laughed once, brittle. You live in a condo in Manila. You travel. You're doing fine. You don't actually know how I'm doing, I said. You've never asked. Another silence, deeper than the first. We need you, Elena. Those words used to unlock everything in me. Tonight, this sounded different. Not like love. Like strategy. I need me too, I said quietly. And for the first time in my life, I'm choosing that. You're being selfish. I closed my eyes. Maybe. But I think I've earned it. Your brother is going to be devastated. Then he'll learn something important, I said. That other people's generosity isn't a budget line. My mother's voice went cold. I don't know who you've become. I'm still your daughter, I said. I'm just not your bank anymore. She hung up without saying goodbye. I set the phone down on the kitchen counter and realized my hands were shaking. Not from fear. From relief. The thing I'd been avoiding for a decade had finally happened, and I was still standing. My husband emerged from the bedroom, reading my face. How bad? Bad, I said. But clean. The days that followed were strange. My phone became a monument to silence. No messages. No calls. It was as if I'd been erased from the family text chain entirely, and the absence felt louder than any argument. I went to work. I met with clients. I presented quarterly reports in boardrooms where no one knew that my family had just excommunicated me. At night, I came home to my husband, and we cooked dinner together, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years, lightness. A week later, my Tita Carmen called. She was my mother's younger sister, the one who'd stayed in the Philippines, the one who'd raised 6 kids on a teacher's salary and never once asked me for money. Elena, she said, her voice warm and unhurried. I heard about Marco's wedding. I braced myself for judgment. Good, she said. I blinked. What? Good, she repeated. It was time. Mama's furious. Your mother, Tita Carmen said slowly, has forgotten the difference between sacrifice and servitude. She survived by sacrificing. She thinks that's what family means. But she's wrong. I felt something crack open in my chest. She thinks I'm being selfish. Of course she does. Because you're disrupting a system that works beautifully for everyone but you. She paused. Elena, I watched you grow up. You were always the one holding things together. Even as a child. Do you know what I used to tell your mother? What? That she was raising you to disappear. The words struck something deep. What do you mean? I mean you were learning to make yourself small so everyone else could be big. Your mother praised you for it. Called you mature, responsible, selfless. But she never asked what it was costing you. I sat down heavily on the couch. I thought I was doing the right thing. You were, Tita Carmen said. For a while. But there's a difference between helping your family and letting them hollow you out. You've been hollow for years, Anik. I could see it every time you visited. Tears came then, unexpected and hot. I don't know how to be anything else. That's why this is important, she said firmly. You're not cutting them off. You're teaching them that you exist. That your life has weight. That their plans can't be built on your silence. Marco won't forgive me. Maybe not right away. But he'll respect you more than he ever did when you were just the ATM machine. I laughed through the tears. Mama says I've changed. You haven't changed, Tita Carmen said. You've just stopped pretending. We talked for another hour. She told me about her own years of being the responsible one, the fixer, the one who smoothed every crisis. She told me about the days she'd said no to a brother who'd been bleeding her dry, and how the family had frozen her out for 2 years. But they came back, she said. Not with apologies, just with new respect. And the ones who didn't come back? I didn't miss them as much as I thought I would. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my living room and let her words settle. I wasn't doing this to punish anyone. I was doing it to survive. And survival, I was learning, sometimes looked like selfishness to people who'd benefited from your exhaustion. 3 weeks later, I received an email. The subject line read, from Marco. I opened it slowly. Elena, it began. Mom and Dad found another way to cover the venue. Alone. They didn't want me to tell you, but I think you should know they're stressed about it. I don't really understand what happened between you all, but I guess I never asked you about money before. I just assumed you were fine with it. I'm not mad. I think I'm just realizing I don't actually know you very well. Anyway, I hope you're okay. It wasn't an apology, but it was a crack in the wall. A small acknowledgement that I'd been invisible even to the person I'd been supporting. I didn't reply immediately. I let the message sit for a day, turning it over in my mind. Then I wrote back, Marco, I'm happy you found a solution. I hope your wedding is everything you've dreamed of. I wasn't fine with it, for a long time. But I'm learning to be fine with myself. I'd like to know you better too, when you're ready. Love, Elena. 2 months passed. My parents didn't call. Marco didn't reach out again. The silence from Canada felt permanent, and I stopped waiting for it to break. But Tita Carmen visited Manila for a conference, and we met for lunch in a quiet restaurant in Poblacion. She looked at me across the table, studying my face like she was reading a story. You look different, she said. I feel different. Good different. I nodded. Lighter. She smiled. That's what freedom looks like, Anik. Your mother used to look like that too, before she forgot how. We ordered Halo Halo and talked about everything except my family. She told me about her students, about her garden, about the grandson who was learning to play guitar. For the first time in my life, I sat with a relative and didn't feel the weight of obligation. As we were leaving, she took my hand. Elena, I want you to remember something. You didn't break the family. You just stopped breaking yourself to hold it together. If they can't see the difference, that's their loss. I drove home that evening through Manila's chaotic traffic, and I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who believed that love required erosion. That being needed meant being valued. That silence was the same as peace. I didn't recognize her anymore. The life I built after that phone call wasn't loud or dramatic. I didn't post about boundaries on social media. I didn't write manifestos about family dysfunction. I just lived. My husband and I started planning the trip we'd postponed for 5 years. Japan and cherry blossom season, just the two of us. I took up pottery on weekends, something impractical in mine. I stopped checking my phone with dread, stopped bracing for the next crisis I'd be expected to solve. At work, I accepted a promotion I'd been avoiding because it required relocation to Singapore. When my boss asked if I needed to check with family first, I smiled and said no. I wasn't running from them. I was running toward myself. 6 months after the phone call, I received a message from my mother. Not an apology. Just a photo. Marco's wedding day. Him in a barong, his bride in white, my parents flanking them with tired smiles. The caption read, "He looked so happy." I stared at the photo for a long time. My brother did look happy, and I felt happy for him. But I also felt something else, distance. The kind that comes not from anger, but from clarity. I replied simply, "Beautiful. I'm glad it went well." She didn't respond, and I didn't expect her to. Years later, people ask me if I regret what I did. If I miss the closeness. If I wish I'd handled it differently. The truth is complicated. I miss the fantasy of who my family could have been. I miss the version of us that existed in my head, where sacrifice was mutual and love didn't come with ledgers. But I don't miss the weight. I don't miss the invisibility. I don't miss being the person who existed only to solve other people's math. My relationship with my family will probably never be what it was. But what it was wasn't working. At least now, when we speak, I'm speaking as myself. Not as the role they needed me to play. Tita Carmen told me once that the hardest part of growing up isn't leaving home. It's realizing you were never allowed to fully live there. That the price of belonging was becoming someone smaller than you were meant to be. I paid that price for 20 years. I'm not paying it anymore. If you've ever been the dependable one, the one who always shows up, the one whose needs come last because everyone else's needs come first, I need you to hear this. You are not cruel for choosing yourself. You are not selfish for having limits. You are not a bad daughter, son, sister, or brother for refusing to disappear. Family is important. But so are you. And the people who truly love you will understand the difference between helping and being hollowed out. The ones who don't, they were never loving you. They were loving what you provided. It took me 34 years to learn that lesson. I hope it takes you less time. Tell me where you're listening from, and don't forget to subscribe for more stories.